It was a humid Monday in East Los Angeles, the kind where sweat gathered on the back of your neck before you even stepped outside. Maria Alvarez wiped her hands on her jeans and glanced down at her son. ¿Estás listo, mijo? Sí, mamá. Gabriel was 10, but his face had the solemn focus of a much older boy. Today was special. Today, they were going to open his very first savings account, a birthday gift that wasn't a toy or a game, but a step toward the future. Maria had been saving cash little by little from her shifts at the diner, $5 here, $10 there. She kept the bills hidden behind old rice bags in the pantry, afraid of what might happen if the wrong person in the neighborhood found out. But today, she'd scraped together $420, enough to start something real for Gabriel. She wanted him to know, we may not have much, but we plan for more. They walked into Ameritrust Bank, a tall white building with tinted glass and marble floors that echoed with the kind of money Maria had never seen. She tightened her grip on Gabriel's hand as they approached the counter. A man in a navy suit with 2 white teeth glanced at them, then forced a smile. "Hi there, what can we help you with?" Maria cleared her throat. "I'd like to open a savings account for my son, in both our names." "Of course. Do you have 2 forms of ID?" She handed over her driver's license and social security card. Gabriel showed his school ID and birth certificate. The man typed into his computer, clicked, frowned. I'll be right back." They waited 10 minutes. Then 20. A woman came out instead, tall, severe, and carrying a clipboard. "I'm sorry, Ms. Alvarez, but unfortunately we're not able to process your request." Maria blinked. "Why?" She hesitated. "Well, as per internal policy, joint minor accounts must be opened by married couples or legal guardians listed as primary custodians. You're listed as single mother, and the system flags that." Maria stared. "I am his mother. I have custody." "We understand, but the system requires a second cosigner or spousal confirmation for dual control over minor funds." "But I don't have a husband," Maria said flatly. "Then I'm afraid we cannot open a joint account in this format." Gabriel looked up, confused. "Mamá, ¿qué pasa?" Maria clenched her jaw. "Nada, mi amor." But inside, something snapped. It wasn't the first time she'd been dismissed, for her accent, her income, her last name. But this? Being told she couldn't save money for her own child? That was the last straw. She walked out into the sun. Maria's face burned, not from heat, but shame. And rage. She didn't speak as she buckled Gabriel into the back seat. She didn't speak as she drove through their neighborhood, past the pawn shop, the liquor store, the gas station with the broken lights. But when she got home, she opened her battered laptop and typed, "Can a bank deny a single mother from opening a savings account?" At first, the answers were vague. Private institutions have the right to set internal guidelines. Certain joint accounts require documentation. Single-parent discrimination is difficult to prove. Then she found a forum thread from 2019. "My bank wouldn't let me open a college fund for my daughter because I'm unmarried. They said it's to prevent fraud." And another. "Same here. They wanted my ex-husband's approval even though I have full custody." And another. "If you're Latina or Black, it's 10 times worse. They treat you like a risk." Maria scrolled in silence. Then, at the very bottom, she saw a link. "Contact the Center for Economic Justice. Legal help for discriminated clients. She clicked. Filled out the form. Didn't expect much. 2 days later, her phone rang. Ms. Alvarez. Karen Saito looked nothing like Maria had imagined. She was young, late 30s maybe, Japanese-American, dressed in clean jeans, a blazer, and worn sneakers. Her handshake was firm, her eyes razor-sharp. They met at a coffee shop near the courthouse, the kind of place where Maria used to feel out of place. Today, she didn't care. Karen spread folders across the table. Before we even talk lawsuit, I need to know everything. Timeline, names, copies of documents, anything the teller or manager said. You remember it? Maria nodded. Every word. Karen pulled out a form. This is a formal complaint under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. We're going to file it with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB. Maria hesitated. That sounds serious. It is, because what they did wasn't just wrong, it might be illegal. She tapped the folder. And I've got a feeling this bank isn't a one-time offender. Over the next 2 weeks, Maria became something she never thought she'd be. An investigator. She dug through old emails, pulled credit reports, scanned every letter she'd ever gotten from a bank. She found an old denial from a different bank in 2018, similar language. Account must be opened jointly with legal spouse or financial co-guardian. She hadn't noticed it then. She noticed now. Karen, meanwhile, filed the first motion for discovery. We're asking Ameritrust for their internal policies, specifically anything relating to family structure, guardianship, and joint accounts for minors. Maria asked, "They have to give it to us?" "Eventually, unless they've destroyed it." Maria frowned. "They wouldn't, would they?" Karen didn't answer. 2 weeks later, Ameritrust responded. Their legal team, from a national firm in Manhattan, sent a 47-page statement denying all wrongdoing. At no point has Ameritrust Bank discriminated based on marital status, gender, or race. The policy in question applies equally to all clients and is in place to protect against potential fraud or custodial disputes. Karen snorted when she read it. They always lead with that line, equally to all. But watch this. She flipped open her laptop and pulled up a spreadsheet. We ran a crowdsourced survey of credit denials over the last 24 months. Over 400 single mothers responded. She highlighted a column. 82% were women of color. 91% had never been given a written explanation. 67% were told verbally it was bank policy. 5% had their appointments canceled after arriving in person. Maria stared. All of them? They just let it go? Karen nodded. Because most don't have time to fight. Maria felt something tighten in her chest. But I do, she said quietly. 3 days later, Maria received an unmarked envelope in her mailbox, no return address. Inside, a printout of an Ameritrust internal email dated 3 years ago. Reminder, when dealing with single-parent applicants, especially Latino immigrant-heavy zip codes, require additional verification, per Risk Mitigation Policy 7B. There was more. Do not leave written notes in the system. Discuss verbally. Maria stared at the page. Her hands trembled. Then she called Karen. This changes everything, Karen said, barely containing her voice. If this is real, it's a smoking gun. Do you believe it's authentic? Karen nodded. I've seen similar language in discrimination suits. What's new is the targeting of zip codes. That's redlining, and that's federally illegal. Maria exhaled slowly. The air around her felt heavier, realer. This wasn't just about her account anymore. It was about every mother they'd silenced. That night, Gabriel asked her, "Mama, are you winning?" She smiled. "I don't know yet, baby, but I'm not losing." The story aired on a Thursday evening. Local Channel 6 News. Prime time. A clean-cut anchor looked into the camera with practiced gravity. Tonight, a single mother is taking on one of America's largest banks, alleging that she was denied a savings account for her child simply because she wasn't married. Cut to Maria, sitting on her modest couch, hands folded tightly in her lap. Her voice was calm but firm. "They told me the system wouldn't let me. That internal policy said I needed a husband, but I only needed my son." By morning, the segment had gone viral. Reddit, Twitter, Facebook. Her face was everywhere. #LetHerSave. #banking bias. #SingleMomStrong. Karen texted her just 3 words. "It's begun." But for every comment of support, there were 2 filled with venom. Typical sob story from someone who didn't read the fine print. Play stupid games, win lawsuits. Maybe marry first next time. Another minority looking for a handout. Maria closed her phone. Gabriel noticed. "Mama?" "I'm okay," she lied. The next day, Gabriel came home crying. "They made fun of me at school," he sniffed. "Said we were poor, said you're suing a bank because you want free money." Maria's hands clenched into fists. She knelt in front of him. "We're not suing them for money, mijo. We're suing them so that you won't be treated like this when you grow up." He wiped his nose. "Then I'll help you win." But Maria was about to find out the bank didn't play fair. One morning, she walked into the diner where she waitressed and found the manager waiting. "I'm sorry, Maria. We got a call from corporate. Something about negative publicity." She blinked. "I haven't said anything about the diner." "I know, but they said you're involved in a lawsuit, that you're on the news, that it might hurt business." He looked away. "They asked me to let you go." She didn't cry. Not until she got home. She sank to the floor, silent, shaking. Unemployed, under attack, alone. She called Karen, her voice hollow. "They're taking everything from me." Karen's tone hardened. "This isn't coincidence. This is coordinated. I've seen it before. The bank isn't just defending itself. They're trying to break you." But the opposite happened. Maria got louder. She joined a podcast interview, gave quotes to The Guardian, shared her story on TikTok. Each time her voice grew stronger. Each time more women emailed. Some told similar stories. Some offered to testify. And then one message stood out. "My name is Lydia King. I used to work in Ameritrust's compliance division. I quit in 2021 after they ignored multiple complaints about their joint account policy. I still have internal memos. If you want them, I'm ready to talk." Karen's reply was immediate. Within 48 hours, they met Lydia in a law office downtown. The woman looked exhausted, scared, but resolute. She handed them a folder. Inside, 6 internal memos referencing risk-based profiling by zip code. A training document outlining how to discourage unnecessary account openings in non-traditional households. A spreadsheet of flagged applicants, over 1,200 names, most marked SM/POC, single mother, person of color. Maria stared at the names, the codes, the silence of it all. Lydia looked at Maria. "You're not the first, Maria. You're just the first to fight back loud enough." Karen smiled. "This turns everything. These are systemic patterns, not one bad teller." She closed the folder. "They tried to bury you with shame, but guess what?" Maria looked up. Karen leaned in. They just handed you a shovel to dig them up. The room smelled like cold paper and coffee that had been sitting too long. Maria sat at the long oak table in a corporate law office downtown, her palms pressed tightly together. Across from her were 3 lawyers in dark suits. They didn't smile. Karen sat beside her, calm as ever. A court reporter clicked her keyboard. The deposition had begun. "State your name for the record." "Maria Isabel Alvarez." "Occupation?" "Currently unemployed." A pause. The lawyer glanced at his notes. "And why is that, Ms. Alvarez?" Maria lifted her chin. "I was fired 2 weeks after my story appeared on the news." He didn't flinch, just nodded and moved on. The questioning grew sharper. "Did anyone at Ameritrust ever say explicitly that your marital status was the reason for the account denial?" Maria thought of the woman at the bank, the stiff voice saying internal policy, the way she avoided eye contact when Maria said she didn't have a husband. She answered carefully. "They said the system required a second parent or spouse. I asked why. They didn't give me a reason." They pressed harder. "Are you aware that many banks have fraud prevention protocols in place for minors?" "Yes." "So wouldn't you agree that this could have been a standard precaution and not discrimination?" Maria kept her voice even. "I agree precautions are fine, but when they're only applied to people like me, that's not precaution, that's prejudice." Karen leaned forward. "Let the record reflect that the client has provided documentary evidence of a policy disproportionately affecting single mothers of color." One of the lawyers interrupted. "We'll dispute the relevance of those materials." Karen smiled, sharp and unshaken. "I'm sure you will. The jury will decide." After 3 hours, they took a break. Maria stepped into the hallway, her hands trembling slightly. She felt like every word she'd said had been pulled out with pliers. Karen handed her a bottle of water. "You're doing better than half the CEOs I've prepped." Maria managed a tired smile. "They want me to feel small." Karen's voice softened. "That's because you're becoming big." When the deposition resumed, Ameritrust's lead attorney changed tactics. "Ms. Alvarez, you said in your public statements that this lawsuit isn't about money, so if offered a settlement with no admission of guilt, would you accept?" Maria blinked. She hadn't expected that. But she saw it for what it was. A test, a trap, a way to buy her silence. She looked the man dead in the eye. "No, I don't want hush money. I want a policy change." The room fell quiet. Then Karen leaned over and whispered something Maria never forgot. She said, "They expected a victim. You walked in as a witness." That night, Maria sat on her porch, watching Gabriel chase lightning bugs with a jar. She was exhausted, worn thin. The case was now national news. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Strangers sent praise. Others sent threats. But here, in this moment, she felt something unexpected. Peace. Then her phone buzzed again. An email. Subject line: Alvarez versus Ameritrust. Class certification approved. She read it 3 times. Karen had filed for class action status, and it had just been granted. That meant this wasn't just her case anymore. Now it included over 700 women. Different cities, different languages, same story. Maria looked out at the street. She'd once been scared to step into a bank. Now she was leading hundreds through the front door and demanding they be seen. The courthouse was packed. Reporters lined the steps. Protesters waved signs. Supporters wore T-shirts that read, "My name is Maria too." Maria Alvarez stood quietly at the edge of it all, her son Gabriel gripping her hand. She wasn't nervous anymore. She was ready. Inside the courtroom, the judge gavelled the session open. This is a federal class action case, Alvarez versus Ameritrust Bank. Allegations include systemic discriminatory practices targeting single mothers and racial minorities in financial access. Maria sat at the plaintiff's table next to Karen, facing the corporate wall of lawyers in $1,000 suits. One of them stood and began, "Your Honor, my clients reject these claims in full. Ameritrust is an equal opportunity institution. This case is built on anecdotes, not facts." Karen rose, calm and steady. "We disagree, and we will prove otherwise, with records, policies, witnesses, and patterns of denial that span over a decade." Outside court hours, Maria kept receiving letters from single mothers in Kentucky, Mississippi, New Jersey, from grandmothers raising their grandkids, from women who had stayed silent for years, until now. But one letter stood out, handwritten, faded. "My name is Rosa Alvarez. I am your grandmother's sister. I saw your name in the news. I have something to show you." They met in a small nursing home in Fresno. Rosa was 91, small and sharp-eyed. She held Maria's hand like they'd known each other forever. "I knew your abuela well," she whispered. "She was the first woman in our family to demand her own bank account, back in 1963. Maria's eyes widened. "She marched with others. They told her she wasn't allowed unless her husband signed. She said no. She said her name was enough." Rosa opened an old box. Inside, a black and white photo of a young woman in a modest dress standing defiantly on courthouse steps, a bank rejection letter, and a newspaper clipping with the headline, "Local Latina Arrested for Protesting Discriminatory Banking Law." Maria blinked back tears. "That was her?" Rosa nodded. "She lost that fight, but she'd be proud you picked it back up." Back at home, Maria placed the photo on her table next to Gabrielle's school portrait. 3 generations, same name, same battle. The trial moved forward quickly. Karen called expert witnesses, economists, and former bank employees like Lydia. Each one painted the same picture: a quiet, deliberate system of profiling, zip code filters targeting Black and Latino neighborhoods, internal training discouraging accounts with non-traditional family risk. Then it was Maria's turn on the stand. She looked out at the jury. All different ages. Some looked skeptical. Some nodded already. She told her story, not just the day at the bank, but the ripple that followed. How she lost her job. How her son was mocked. How she discovered hundreds of other women like her. Then she held up her grandmother's letter. "My abuela stood on courthouse steps 60 years ago. She was told her name didn't mean anything unless a man signed beside it. She walked away in handcuffs." Maria's voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "I came back to finish what she started. Because our names do mean something, and they deserve to be enough." The courtroom was silent. Then one woman in the gallery stood up. Then another. Then 10. Until almost every woman in the room was standing. The judge banged the gavel again, but something had already shifted. That night, Maria tucked Gabrielle into bed. He looked up at her. "Mama?" "Yes, mijo?" "When I grow up, I want to work at a bank." She laughed softly. "Really? So I can help moms like you." The verdict never came. Not because they lost, but because Ameritrust blinked first. 2 weeks before closing arguments, their legal team approached Karen with a confidential offer. But this time, they weren't offering just money. They were offering reform. Terms of the settlement: a public apology from Ameritrust Bank, full policy overhaul for all minor account protocols, elimination of all marital status-based restrictions, a $10 million fund allocated for financial access programs targeting single mothers of color, and, by Maria's request, the founding of the Isabel Initiative, a permanent grant named after her grandmother to help women open first-generation family accounts. Maria sat in the boardroom when the agreement was finalized. The Ameritrust CEO, visibly tense, signed each page under the eye of the federal judge. Karen passed Maria the final copy. She signed in silence. No tears, no fist pumps, just clarity. It wasn't a win in the way people expected. It was bigger. At the press conference, a journalist asked her, "Miss Alvarez, how does it feel to bring down a national banking giant?" Maria smiled gently. "I didn't bring anyone down. I just helped a few more of us stand up." In the months that followed, her life changed in ways both big and small. She got her job back, not at the diner, but at a nonprofit helping women access financial literacy. Gabriel made honor roll. They moved into a small but sunny two-bedroom apartment. And every week, Maria received letters. "Because of you, I opened an account for my daughter. They don't ask if I'm married anymore. I thought I was invisible. Now I feel seen." One day, she stood at the edge of the courthouse steps, holding a plaque. It was being installed on a stone pedestal outside the building. Simple. Clean. It read, "The Isabel Stone," in honor of every woman told she needed someone else's name to be valid. Your name was always enough. Underneath, established 2025 by Maria Isabel Alvarez. She ran her fingers across the engraved letters, tears blurring the marble. It had started with $420 and a question. Now it was a law, a legacy, a lesson. Back at home, Gabriel was working on a school project titled "The Day My Mom Changed the Rules." He read her the ending. "My mom is not a lawyer, she didn't go to college, but she knew something was wrong, and she didn't stop until they fixed it. She's not famous, but to me she's the reason other moms won't hear no ever again." Maria wiped her eyes and hugged him tightly. "You'll never need someone else's name, mijo. Yours is already strong enough." Some battles don't end with cheers. They end with silence, and a name carved into stone where no one can erase it again.